Ross Hardy, Inkjet Carts Technical Support, and we're here at our location with our damper cart system. The damper cart system, believe it or not, dampers are installed on every Epson print head, Epson Pro print head. They'll have cartridges right on top of the print head. In addition to them looking a lot like an ink cartridge, they have check valves as well. Some of them look like solvent ink printers, dampers these days, and they're part of an ink supply system on the newer Epson cartridges. But what is a damper, and why do you want to use one? First of all, they have a check valve inside, so ink only flows towards the print head. They still have a submicron screen filter that filters out any particles before it goes to the printer. And to illustrate, I'm turning this cartridge upside down. See, it's completely level, and you see that you've got no loss of ink. Also, they don't really drip, but you do have to fill them properly. And we're going to discuss that, and we're also going to discuss the different types of chips. But back to why you want to use them. One, you put them in the printer and they're separate from the chip. Believe it or not, even the Epson chips, even though they're on the cartridges themselves, they're separate. There is no gas gauge on the Epson chips that are attached to your cartridges. There's no actual float valve in there that tells you how much ink you have in the cartridge. Epson works off of math on their chips. I told you to fire this much ink, and your new level is this. You do a bunch of head cleanings, I told you to fire a bunch of ink, and your new ink level is this. And it doesn't really care if the ink ever came out of the cartridge or not. It writes back to the chip, your new level is this, and that's what your new level is. So, with a cartridge that's separate from the chip installed in the printer this way, your troubleshooting is pretty much done for you. You can pull and pop the cap on this cartridge with a lever, just like this, O-ring sealed, and put more ink into it anytime you want without removal. There's no lockdown on this. The lock is actually done with the seal itself, which is what we call the primary seal. When you have ink in this cartridge and it's a little bit lubricated, if you pre-prime it like this, there's already some ink on there. Move it up and down on the ink supply stem until you got a nice tight grip, and that's it. It's free to swivel and pivot on that ink supply stem, and it will always seal because the ink stem is well within this gray seal of the cartridge. All of that being said, since you are separate from the chip, in most cases, you're going to be able to reset all 4 positions or all 6 positions at one time with the press of a button during an ink cartridge change. That being said, not only are you resetting this level here, you're resetting the other 4, the other 3, or the other 5, depending on how many position printer you have. Some of the chips are battery powered, and there'll be a battery cord on here for this one, which means it's a RWTF, reset whenever to full. Other chips will have just a push button on them, like this one, and this is a reset button push, RBTF chip, reset button to full. You need one position to be low or almost out, or reported as unrecognized before you can do a cartridge change. But when you do press this, it flashes the whole chipboard, resets all 6 to full. And that would be for one of our artisan printers, and a 1400 printer or a 1430, the same thing. Resetting all 6 to full means you're killing 5 other resets that are going to come at you down the line. Now, when you're doing things like we are, specialty ink, screen black, for film positives, or dye sub inks, or a lot of heat transfer and stuff like this, you don't need all these chips coming at you all the time saying I'm out, I'm gonna lose a print. So how do you handle the damper cart system? First thing you want to do is install the actual chip in the printer. You're gonna see some boards in with your chip, and it's important that you see that this has an up arrow on it and an L marking. We do have long and short sticks for different printers. You'll also see a groove in the back. So the first thing you want to do is have your ink bay completely empty, and then you want to press this chip in kind of high on the gold pens in the printer and slide it down. You see these feet underneath? These are positioners that keep it at the right height. Once you do have it kind of high and slide it down, compressing the gold pens, you want to make sure that up arrow is up. After the up arrow is up, you want to slide it in, and you'll see that the other side of the chip is slotted. This is going to grab the cartridge divider slots on the other side of the printer. So put both of them in, or in the case of other chips, put all three of them in kind of high. Continue to hold that chip and then slide them down a little at a time until they hit the bottom of the groove. There's no reason to push hard and push them out. If you do, you'll kick the chip out. It won't be right. So put them all in, slide them down until they hit the bottom of the groove, and it actually does wedge the chip in place. At that time, you would want to do a cartridge change procedure. No dampers in the printer yet. If you're in the right place, your chip is positioned properly, you want to test that first. As soon as you test that, you're going to do another cartridge change on the printer and then prime and load your dampers. Now, long story short, the reason you want to do this, and we know we're going to ingest a little bit of air, but if your printer's okay right now, there's no big problem with this. It's just that it's going to be messy to pull all these dampers out, and especially if you've loaded them all the way. These dampers do not have a valve in them. I'll get back to that in a second. So you want to test the printer first to make sure the chip is recognized and in the right place, and then immediately do another cartridge change. So now we know our chip is good. We've got control of the printer. I have people that have destroyed printers. They only print black, so they only load black. The other 3 or 4 or 5 positions don't fire and haven't fired before they knew us. So they only load a black damper, and it's a great way because we've got this in place to tell the printer that we've got all the other cartridges installed, and they can print all the black emails they want, all the black letters they want, all the time, and they don't have to throw the printer away. That being said, this special chip gives you a lot of versatility. Now, let's go to the damper. I want you to fill it to about just above the top, and then of this raceway in here, and then I want you to insert the syringe and tip into the bottom just like that, and yes, poke through the plastic, and then I want you to suck on it, and then I want you to prime it. Now, if you had ink in there instead of just that little bit of ink in there, you would have seen solid ink flow all the way through the filter and all the way into the syringe. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to fill it just enough to prime it. That being said, filling it just enough to prime it, it won't leak. So you won't have a messy situation on your hands while you're getting ready to install them all. So you've already installed the chip. You already have the chip installed. You've already tested the chip. Now you pre-primed the dampers. Put them in. And just put them in and move them up and down a couple of times on the ink stem. Allow a little bit of ink to get out of that seal, just like I did there. And then you're going to have a nice tight seal. After you have all of them installed, whether it's 4, 5, or 6, then I want you to go ahead and pop the door and take a syringe and fill them the rest of the way. Go ahead and fill them nice and slow, and you can see the ink coming up because they're clear, and you can see the ink through the top. Do it with one hand like I'm doing here, and do it nice and slow, and you won't have a mess on your hands, because that's the way you're going to be filling them the rest of the time in the printer without removal. Whenever there's going to be a chip resetting issue, you're going to reset that during a cartridge change with a push of a button. All of that being said, you have a lot of versatility here. You can also remove ink from a damper with a long needle, suck all of the ink out of it, pull it out of the printer and put in a fresh cartridge, or add some printhead cleaner to this after sucking all the ink out of it. You can do that even without removal, but if you do suck it all out first and put a little printhead cleaner in there, you can kind of shake it up a little bit, mix it, and put it back in. Lots of versatility, and you're not removing any of the other cartridges, nor have you even told the printer you removed anything, because you've got a chip overriding it. All of that being said, for our older Epson printers, this was a great product, and it still is to this day. And we're starting to see a lot of resurgence with people who basically, Epson's no longer supporting these older printers, and they're out there, and these damper cart systems are great. Ross Hardy with Inkjet Cart's technical support. Hope you've enjoyed our damper cart system video, and if you do these steps properly, you'll have a great system that everything stays in the printer, and you don't need to do anything except just occasionally reset the chips, reset the chip, and also refill the cartridges inside the printer without removal. Thank you.